Hi and welcome to the Andrew Hancock's Academy of Golf. In today's episode, I'm looking quite closely at Rory McIlroy's overall swing mechanics, with a particular focus on some of the biomechanical features that shape the overall motion. What I've done here to start off with is I've just drawn Rory's original shaft line plane here in the address position, so this red line indicates where Rory's shaft is at address. And I've done this because one of the key features of Rory's golf swing is when he starts moving the club away from the ball. Hopefully what you can see is Rory's lead arm works slightly off the chest and the torso at the very beginning of the motion. And in addition to that, Rory's hands rise, they arch ever so slightly upwards off this red shaft line, plane line at address. And what that does is it triggers a chain reaction domino effect in terms of the sequencing and the synchronisation of Rory's overall swing mechanics. What you see here is Rory moving the club and the head getting slightly under plane, just underneath the plane line here, which then leads to a setting and a loading of the club shaft, which actually becomes quite shallow and laid off. So the club is not completely in balance when Rory sets the club, when his lead arm is parallel to the ground. This then leads to what I refer to as a slightly deep right elbow position at the top of the backswing. So you can see here, if I just circle Rory's right elbow position here, this trail elbow is just slightly deep and behind the rib cage, which also gives the club shaft a slight across the line appearance at the top here. So it's interesting because Rory then has this incredibly dynamic sequencing through the transitional phase, where we see an incredible sort of downward squatting move here with his lower half. You can see the increase in the leg flex through the transition. And if we just zoom in on the pelvic area, you can really see that squatting motion. And in addition, what you can see is quite an interesting and specific movement, which I refer to with my students as a diagonal lateral hip nudge. So you can see Rory's lower centre here is shifting on a slight diagonal. If you look at what happens with his lead knee and the pelvis there, you can see there's a slight diagonal hip nudge, which really does cause the hand path to shallow, the tracking of the hand path and the club shaft as well. And as a direct consequence, you'll see through the transitional phase as the swing progresses, the club head approaches the golf ball. You can really see how the club head itself does become stuck, trapped underneath the plane. So as Rory delivers the club into the impact area, you can really see how he is attacking the golf ball from under the plane. And of course, this does promote a path which is too much from inside to out. And when we know that the path is working too much to the right, we then know that the hands will have to work quite hard to manipulate and save the impact. So it's a slightly compromised impact and release pattern, which you see here. The hands are working overtime there to save the club and the release. And of course, there's the club exits up through the exit plane, up through the left shoulder. You can see here how the toe of the club has surpassed the heel quite noticeably. So Rory's hands are working hard there. He's timing to, it's more of a hand manipulation rather than a controlled hand action in response to the overall body motion or body action. So if I just take Rory back to his address position here and remove some of these circles, what I would be looking to do here, just to improve the overall sequencing, is to encourage Rory to just feel more of a drag at the start of the motion here. So hands staying a little bit lower, almost the thought of the butt end of the club dragging away from the ball, butt end of the golf club working more towards that right leg. So in essence, it's more hands in, club out, so the club can then get balanced, set and balanced and planed more up on its end here. So as opposed to being slightly laid off here, just have it slightly more towards the vertical, so slightly more on plane in balance, and then as a consequence you'd see a slightly shorter arm swing at the top here, where the right elbow position would be a little bit more in front of the rib cage instead of those extra frames which we see here just getting slightly stuck behind, and then of course this dynamic motion through the transition causing the club to get slightly more behind. So some really interesting movements on display. For me, I would work very much at the start of the motion, because this really does trigger a chain reaction for the whole golf swing. Hopefully you found that interesting and you can relate to some of these movements, and if you would like some more detailed information about these types of things, please do get in touch. It'd be great to hear from you. You can contact me at ahagolf.pro.